Welcome, wayward souls who have stumbled onto this video. It's that time of year to curl up on the couch with a hot drink and watch over the garden wall. This is my favorite season, and it never quite feels long enough. The second October ends, so many people go right into Christmas mode. So I wanted to make some fall/vintage Halloween decor inspired by the show that encapsulates the feeling of fall so well. I was planning on having this video out by the end of October, but life kinda got in the way of that. I ended up being a little busier than I thought I would be this last month. Also, the 10-year anniversary for Over the Garden Wall was on November 3rd, so let's just pretend that I planned for it all to work out this way. It's been nice to see so many people also watch this show during fall. So when I was figuring out what I wanted to make, I knew I wanted to make a paper lantern inspired by the album art. I also wanted to make a garland of some kind with bright leaves and little clay items from the show. I had seen people online making vintage Halloween pumpkin buckets with paper clay and thought that would fit in with the feel of the show, and then I'd paint it to look like one of the villagers from Pottsfield. But speaking of Pottsfield, I had to do something with Enoch, so I thought it would be cool to craft a figure of him. So with my project picked out, let's get into the video. First item I'll be working on is the paper Halloween bucket. I had seen a few people doing these and I thought it would be cool to do one that looked like the pumpkin people from Pottsfield. So I bought just a regular plastic pumpkin bucket that they sell for like $2. This will be the base that we will then put the paper clay onto. I then covered the bucket in a layer of paper towel pieces brushed with glue to give the paper clay something textured to stick to. Now I'm going to make the paper clay. I kind of cobbled together a recipe from a few that I saw because I didn't want to have to go buy any specialty ingredients that I would only use once. I will include that in the description with measurements, so if any of you want to make this as well, you can. First off, I ripped up about 3 egg cartons and had them soak in hot water overnight. Once the paper is wet enough, you will need to blend the paper with water so it will be fine enough to be moldable in clay without having big chunks in it. I would recommend adding more water to the paper mixture than I did here. It ended up being a little too chunky and it was hard to blend. Then after the paper is blended, I strain as much water out of it as possible using a linen cloth. You could use cheesecloth if that's what you have on hand, just something that can let the water through. I mixed together Eileen's tacky glue, cornstarch, vinegar, and oil. Then I mixed in about a cup of paper pulp. I started with a spatula, but switched to my hands because it ended up being easier to mix that way. It was still looking too sticky, so I kept adding paper pulp until I got to a good consistency that could hold its shape. Now I'm going to keep it in an airtight container until I need it tomorrow. The next day, the pumpkin is dry so I can start to put the paper clay on it. I drew in the pumpkin where I wanted the facial features to go, and I also cut them out of paper so once it's covered up, I still have the right shape. Now I'm just going to apply the paper clay all over the pumpkin. I started applying the paper clay with a paint spatula and once again realized that using my hands was just faster. Then once I've layered on the paper clay, I go back in with a spatula and smooth it out. Now to start on the features of the pumpkin person. I'm basically just taking the paper clay, making little coils, and putting them where the facial features would be, and then attempting to blend them out with this spatula. Then I will leave it for a couple days to dry. While I'm waiting for the pumpkin to dry, I'm going to start making the elements for the garland. I'm using foam clay so they aren't too heavy and weigh it down. I'm starting with the pumpkins. Next, I'm making the candy pieces that Greg throws around for a candy trail. Now that I'm just waiting for parts of projects to dry, I decided to take a break and make some chai. I was finally able to get my hands on some whole cardamom pods, and I've always wanted to make chai at home. The spices I used are cardamom, cloves, allspice, fennel, cinnamon sticks, ginger, and peppercorns. I sliced up a few pieces of ginger and ground them with my spices. Then I boiled a small pot of water and added in my ground spices. I then added a couple tablespoons of my favorite black tea. I let that simmer together for a few minutes and then added my oat milk in. Once I got it boiling, I took it off the heat for a little bit. Then it goes back onto the heat to boil again. From what I saw others make, it's not chai if you don't double boil it. I added some sugar to sweeten it. Once I was done, I strained it into my mug. I was very happy with how it turned out. The spices came through nicely and it was such a cozy fall drink. Alright, it's been a few days and my pumpkin is dry and ready for painting. I'm first covering it in black so when I dry brush it later, it will show through just a little bit to kind of give it that vintage look. Now I'm going to dry brush my orange color on top. Now onto the details of the face. I'm going to paint my foam clay sculpts since they have also dried out. Also, I'm changing the garland to a wreath. I found a nice wreath from a thrift store that I thought would work perfectly and had cute little fall leaves and acorns on it already. I took a break from crafting to have a fall party with some friends and my sister. Me and her started this last year, and we just have fun making food from our favorite fall movies and shows. Now I'm getting to work on my lantern. I had left this for later because I was trying to find one that was similar to the one in the album, but I had no luck with that. So I cut the shape out of cardboard with openings on all sides that would have different characters on it. I painted the cardboard black on the outside, and I got to work on the silhouettes going into the lantern. I think it turned out pretty good for just being cardboard and paper. And it looks even better with a candle lit inside of it. For the wreath, I wanted to fill it out a bit more with leaves. Once I got it looking how I wanted, I started attaching my foam pumpkins and candy. I made a couple black turtles as well. I also realized later on that I should add a little rock fact rock, so you'll see that later on. To make the Enoch figure, I took an empty paper towel roll and rolled craft paper around it to get a cone shape to work with. I got crepe paper and green and yellow and used food dye to make them more earthy colors. I cut them into strips and glued them in alternating colors to cover the cone. Then I cut smaller strips and glued them just at the top so they would flow. I also glued a few pieces of raffia to add more texture. For the head, I just did the steps from my bucket, but got a mini plastic bucket and took off the handle. For painting, I covered it in black and then dry brush orange. Now it's just the details left. Now I just need to attach the head. I had cut a hole in the bottom and hot glued it together. I made inox arms with floral wire and crepe paper so I could pose them how I wanted. And with that, Enoch is complete. And when I had made the Enoch head, I also made a count out of another small bucket. For painting, I did the opposite of what I did for the pumpkins, painting orange as the base to show through when I dry brush black over the top. And basing the face off of vintage cat illustrations. I'm leaving orange where I want the eyes, mouth, and nose. Once I have everything laid out, I clean it up and add the details. I ended up having one last idea that I wanted to do. I have these cute oval frames and I thought I could do silhouette portraits of Greg and Wirt. Once I got the sketches done for them, I used my ink pens to color in their silhouettes. I cut them out and popped them into the frames. Now with everything complete, it's time to show everything that I've made. If you've made it to the end of the video, I truly appreciate it. I had a lot of fun making these, and now I have personalized decor to have each year. If you enjoyed watching me stumble my way through these projects, I would love to have you follow along my journey with this channel. I'm new to making videos, and it is a bit of a learning curve. I'll be honest, I probably won't have anything else to post until the new year, so until then, I hope you have happy holidays, and I will see you next time. Bye!